All right, okay. Right.
And those sparks are together, okay? And I'm gonna ask you about the date.
Oh, okay.
The date.
Sitting here,
Oh, yeah, when we went
Columbus.
in
You already
Columbus
told it. but
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
together.
All right.
She may interject some things that may be able to keep at it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's better. This is good format. Yeah, I like this.
And I'm gonna ask you about your scripture and your,
About what?
ask you about your scripture and your hymn,
Okay. All right. Okay.
okay?
Right.
You said you finally, you remember something else that you wanted to say?
I'm just going to talk about the police in Birmingham and the fact that they don't, and then also the. Now I'm going to talk about the one that when I first saw my first black policeman, and that was in Rochester, New York. I want to talk about that. Some of us, you know, if I had known you do that, I could have been thinking about some things like this. I mean, let me think for a minute. That and, oh, I think of it as a go. I told you, I can't think of something. I'm serious. My mind just leaves me. Shoot, I said, wait. Anyway, I'll think of it as we go. Maybe.
I like watching them work. It's amazing.
We'll talk about the trip to Birmingham. I mean, to Tuskegee, about the Clanton, Alabama, stuff like that. Just remind me, Clanton, Alabama.
Right above the shoulder and right at the top of the head.
They would have anything else to do today this afternoon.
Rush this morning with the
Yeah.
PT session.
Pretty on camera.
Yeah, we ready.
We're rolling. How did you meet your husband?
I met my husband at the apartment of a friend of ours. He was getting ready to go to work, and then we were introduced, and I was told that he was a returned Peace Corps volunteer. And working at the Y, I went, great, potential program speaker. And so I told him what I did, and I told him that maybe one of these days he could come to the Y and talk to the students about the Peace Corps. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How did you meet your husband? Tell me about your date in Columbus.
Well, when
You can talk back and forth.
the date that what impressed me about Johnny, when we had this date, and I went to see her in Columbus, and as I said before, I really didn't want to go. I wanted to eat at home, but when I got there, I couldn't believe that being from Mississippi, she would be so brave and bold to want to go in and the restaurant down there. But black folks don't go in that restaurant, so I'm sitting down and saying, do I really want to go? And I really did. So okay, I'll be brave. I'll go. So we went to this restaurant. I tell you, I was very uncomfortable. I mean, when I got sick, but I'm not sure now whether the sickness came from the food or whether or not I was so emotionally disturbed until I got sick from just going there. But But she was always been real bold about going and doing things. That's what impressed me about her. You know, she was just, she would go in places and do things that people just black people just weren't doing in Mississippi. So that didn't really impress me about her.
Tell me about the service.
About the service at the restaurant, I think you're right. I think it was the food that made you sick, because not only did you get sick, I got sick, and your brother got sick. So I think that was one of the things that we would see early on in the civil rights era. If you went places and, there was a lot of sickness, because I think people were putting things in food to actually make that happen. Yeah. If they couldn't refuse your service, they wanted to make their mark in one way or the other. And so sometimes people would walk out and they feel, don't feel quite so good here. Not enough to really hurt you, but enough to know that perhaps you shouldn't have been doing what you just did, which is to attend that restaurant.
And you remember the time even after that, we went to Auburn University up there to visit Auburn.
Oh, yeah.
And we stopped at a restaurant. And
no, that was in the 60s.
Yeah, in the 60s. And we stopped at a restaurant to eat. And we walked in, and everybody in there just stopped still and started looking at us. And we had some friends with us. And they just knew they really didn't want us to be there. So we went, they gave us a seat. We sat down, they were just really rude. Guy came and took a whole thing of silverware and just dropped it on the table in front of us. We just sat there and looked at it. And then after that, when he brought the food, just set it anywhere, just in front, just set it down. And if we just sat there and looked at it for a few minutes, we just got up and walked out. And I left it all right there. And then what happened with that was right after that, at that time there was no black students going to, this is an Auburn University campus, and no black students were going there. Actually, it was a highway that runs right through there. And Johnny then went back over there after we came from Indiana, and she was, I think, the first black woman that taught at Auburn University. Am I right, Johnny?
I think so. I was a TA. A teaching assistant there at Auburn University, I think so. Yeah. And
what I liked about that was she just always bold enough to just stand up and do it. I could do it anywhere I want to go. That's what I like about it.
Tell me about Birmingham police, or the first policeman.
Well, actually, there was absolutely no black policeman in Birmingham, none, anywhere. I don't know if there's any in the South, really. I don't know, but I know Birmingham was not. And see, Birmingham is a very congested area, an urban area, and blacks and whites are in close proximity at all times, And we had a very contentious relationship with police. And when I went to Rochester, New York to visit my sister, there was a black policeman in the middle of the street directing traffic. We had these big boots on, tall black boots and stuff. And that was so fascinating to me. I just stood there, and I sat several hours, I just stood there and watched this guy. And what I was concerned about was white people listening to this guy? I just couldn't believe it. I stood, I bet you, about 5 or 6 hours just watching this guy. It was fascinating to me, really, because I hadn't seen a black policeman before. This was in 1960. That's when I was in college. That was 1963, I believe it was. There was no black policemen in Birmingham at all. No black bus drivers, nothing, So.
Well, you see, I think that's a part of what happened. So with people in the South, if you didn't get a chance to travel and to see that things could be different, then you're kind of stuck with just the perception that you had. And so I think that to some extent that was a part of the goal of whites to black out things on TV, so you never had an opportunity. Mm-hmm. If you didn't know it was possible, then maybe you wouldn't want it if you didn't think it was possible. But the travel out, the television and all gave people views of things that were different and how things could be different.
And the other thing I thought about too, like we used to travel from Birmingham to Tuskegee to school, at least I did. Mm. And that was a town right between Tuskegee and Birmingham and Montgomery, a little Clanton, Alabama, I think the name of it. And when we go through there, They just sit and wait for us. We always try to avoid going through that because we couldn't really avoid it because cops would always stop us for some reason. And the only time I think, my brother and I used to go down at Christmas time shopping down in Birmingham. And I remember one time we were riding down to Birmingham, going downtown shopping, and white policeman standing on the corner, like directing traffic or whatever. He saw us pull up. And he said, where you boys going? I said, we're just going shopping. Did y'all see y'all just ran that traffic light? No, we don't think so, sir. Boy, yes, you did. And he said, I tell you what, just give me $15 and I won't turn it, I just won't report it. And we gave, the money we wanted to buy a Christmas gift, we had to give it to him. He took it and put it in his pocket, and that was it. And the same thing like going to Tuskegee back. The other thing too, just riding a Greyhound. We thought that you might think that the buses in the city of Birmingham were segregated. The Greyhound, Trailways, yeah. You could get on those buses. You had to go to back also. And sometimes when you get on the bus, if it's full, you got to get on the front, pay your fare, get off the bus, and go to the back and get in. And if you're sitting there sometimes, you might be asleep. And the white section gets full, the bus driver just gets up, won't say a word. You take that board and put it back by 3 seats, and you sit there. Now you're wrong. You're wrong now. So you must get up. If you don't get up, you're going to jail. So, but you had to get off of that bus. You couldn't go through the ways. You had to turn around. You had to go around to the back to get on the bus. I mean, things like that just infuriated us. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. But that happened in Birmingham, for sure.
Tell me about being referred to as boy.
Well, right now, sometimes when I go to places, people say to me, they like to call you chief. There's a chief, an uncle, boy. Here I am, 75 years old. I'm still a boy in a lot of them. So I said, that bothers me. That's the best I can say. It really bothers me to have to be referred to like that,
It was a common practice for whites to demean blacks by not calling them by their names. And so any way that they could think of to demean you or to make you seem less human was a practice that they would use. Yeah. So they wouldn't call blacks by their name, and certainly they wouldn't use any title in reference to them. So even though they would know your name, instead of Leroy, they would call them
Uncle,
Chief, or Uncle. And as my father was fond of saying, I'm not your uncle. I'm just not your uncle. My name is John. And so it was a practice, and it's something that really bothers me today, and it's to listen to people refer to the President of the United States by his first name. He is President Obama, not Obama. And so having grown up in Mississippi, it's hard for people to understand why that is so troublesome for me, because it's a sign of disrespect rather than respect.
Well, I tell you, if you really want to get a reaction from me, just call me boss. Yeah, so don't ever do that.
It was common practice. Now, according to some people, they will say to you, but I didn't mean any harm. Well, at some point you have to learn, even though your intent was not to be hurtful, the impact is. And so you need to be mindful of things like that. Be aware of other people's position, other people's experiences, so that even though it might not bother them, it bothers people who have had that experience.
Well, sometimes you even get reaction. You get referred to as sunshine. They say, "Good morning, sunshine." That kind of thing. It just burns me up. I mean, that's one of the, you hear a lot of that in the South. Sunshine. What does that mean? I mean, it has something to do with my blackness? I don't know. Maybe they think so.
And today, when people use it, I think their intent is to be friendly. My name is Johnny.
But those words hurt. They really do, you know, so.
Mr. Leroy, you talked about being hired out while doing construction or
Yeah.
tell me how that felt.
Well, I even feel that today. I mean, I just felt that they gonna pay for that one day, you know. I just felt kind of bad about that, really did, you know, that they didn't pay me, hadn't paid me yet. That was back in 1957. I finished high school. First job I had. I was make about $25 a week, you know, but that's a lot of money back in that time. Not a whole lot comparative, but that's what I was making. And the guy said, I want to use you for an afternoon. Come in, you know. So I went out and worked for this guy all afternoon, waited for the pay. And on top of that, wouldn't even take me home after that. So I had to get on the bus, pay my own fare, dirt and much stuff all over me, you know. And when I got home, I would sit down and I was carrying those buckets and all. My hands would be so cramped up. And I raised my hand like that. My mother used to just grab my hand and pull it and open it for me because I had to work, you know. That was just really, really tough, you know. So, but they still hadn't paid me yet. They'll get their pay in heaven.
In hindsight, he said, thank goodness to those guys who didn't pay him. It was motivation for him to go to school.
Well, you know, a lot of times that happens. You know, when you get treated like that all your life, you're going to say, you know, I got to do better than this. There's something I can do better than that. What do I need to do? So my thing is, I say, yeah, first of all, I got to go to school. Didn't have a dime, but I got to school. But thank God for Tuskegee, because they had this 5-year program, and they said you can work your way through, and that's what got me through college. And even when I went to grad school, I didn't have no money. When my wife and I both went to Indiana University in 1968, that's the same year Martin Luther King died. When I got there, I didn't have a dime. Everything we owned was in the car with us and on the top, in one of these carriers up there. And so I got there, and Johnny got a job working. I used to clean the football stadiums on the weekend to make enough money to last that week. And my major professor said, you know, you really want to get through, don't I? I said, yes, sir, I really want to get through. And I got a scholarship after that. Now, how many people would go and take that chance to pack up your bag, go all by yourself with nothing, and go to a place like that, a strange state? But he said, we're gonna take care of you, you know. But that means you got to take the first step. If you take the first step, somebody else will help you.
The reason I asked about being hired out, because you said that they asked the foreman, I'd like one of your boys to come work for me.
Yeah,
Lend me one of your boys.
that's right.
And it sounded like master talk.
Well, it did.
And I was wondering if it felt like, did you feel compelled to go?
Yes, I did, only because I was going to get paid.
Let me say that again.
You start.
Say it. You have to say, I felt compelled to go.
Oh, I felt compelled to go because my mother was sitting there waiting for me to come home to buy some food for all 11 of us to eat. So I had to do that. I had to take all that, what you call it, I had to swallow it all, so to speak, and just so that I can get a paycheck to go home. And so this guy didn't pay me that day. Now that really hurt, you know. And I told the guy I was working for, I said, you know, these guys didn't pay me. And guess what he said? Oh, they just like that sometime. I couldn't believe it. Now, you know, how did that make me? I want to kill him. That's what I want to do.
I suspect that that would have to go. I suspect that if
Oh, I'm sorry.
that when you're working for someone, you expect that there's going to be some kind of respect. But it was kind of like that experience sounded like the plantation master.
Yeah.
I own you, so you have to do what I tell you to do. It reminds me of the story you told me about the woman whose yard you were
Oh my goodness, yeah.
cutting, and she was talking on the phone to one of her friends, and
She had a package she wanted to deliver.
She wanted a package to deliver, and she said, "I'll send using the N-word over to bring it to you."
And I'm sitting there in the house, been cleaning the house, cleaning old nasty toilet and all that stuff. I'm sitting there doing all that work, and she could say, "I'm gonna send my N-word down and bring you this package." But again, I had to take it because I'm sitting there waiting for that 50 cents she's gonna pay me so I can go home and buy some food for my family. Because my mother was waiting for me to come home with the money, you see. But you have to take it. A lot of things you have to just swallow while you're in that environment down there. It wasn't pretty, I can tell you that. Birmingham was not pretty.
And that reminds me of one of the scenes from Selma where the woman was talking to Mrs. King when she said that she wasn't sure that she was ready. And the other character said to her that we come from kings and queens over years. We survived the crossing. So you're prepared, you're already prepared. And so what we don't always get is that we have, blacks in this country have survived a lot. I mean, they have survived, and many of them have thrived. And they didn't let those little mountains, they didn't let being treated badly get in the way of their achieving their goals. And that's another message that I'm hoping that people will take away from things like The Butler and Selma and the other movies that are out there, is that there may be a lot of barriers placed in your way by other people, but you get to decide what you're going to do with that. You know, are you going to walk away, or are you going to do what you have to do and then figure out later how you're going to respond to that? It was tough times, but people made it work. They made it work.
That's right.
And you did that.
Now, one of the things I'd like to say is that I think young people today need to realize that there was a struggle back then that time. And a lot of them, I get the feeling sometimes, a lot of them believe that, oh, that just happened back then. You know, some of that stuff is even happening now. You know, but the people who went through this and did all that, the Freedom Riders and all those people, you know, those were some brave people. That's all I can say. Because I don't think I could sit on that counter. I don't think I could do that. That was a brave kind of things that they did, you know. But a lot of kids now that don't realize, they said, "Oh, that didn't happen. Oh, that's old. That's way back there," you know. And they want to try to forget it because things are a little bit different than now than it was back then. I remember the time in Birmingham. I'm walking down the street, and if a white person is coming towards me and they're on the sidewalk, I got to step off the sidewalk so they can pass. They can get back on. And you expected to do that, to get off the sidewalk, because white people are coming now, you see. And that was the norm. Now, you probably wouldn't have that in Mississippi because, you know.
I'm sure they did.
Well, I'm saying.
And more for men than for women.
But I'm saying that there was not that many. In rural areas, you don't have sidewalks and nothing like that. But in Birmingham, that's a big city. And it's more concentrated, you know, with blacks and white people that live together. And so if you're walking down the street downtown, you better get off that sidewalk because you go to jail for that, you see. So those are the kind of things that you know, just really kind of bother me about the South, really. Anyway.
What's your favorite scripture, Mr.
No weapon. My favorite scripture, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I like that. And my favorite hymn is Come Thou Fount. And also Through It All, because when you talk about through it all, we've been through a lot to get where we are. And I prospered by that. That's it? Cut.
Is this your last one?